Members of the Council, officers of the Council, please be upstanding and welcome Your Worship, the Mayor of Nuneaton and Bedworth, Councillor Jeff Clark, JP.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Get me papers in order. I've got a fair few papers today. Oops, it is. We okay? Right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, Wednesday the 19th of April, beg your pardon, at 6 o'clock. We have no special announcements this morning, today, but there are some announcements in a little while. First of all, we're going to the evacuation procedure. As I say, welcome everyone, both members and the public. It is a council meeting. I will remind everyone that it is a council meeting that we're at today. But there is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on the agenda. There is no fire drill expected. However, if the alarm does sound, then please leave via the nearest fire exits or the entrance that you came in via. If you need any assistance, please make yourselves known to the officers. And once we leave the building, please assemble outside Lloyds Bank across the street. Moving on, apologies. I've received apologies from Councillor Brett Beetham and also Damon Brown, who's running a little late and hopes to be here. Councillor Watkins and Councillor Tracy Shepherd. Any other members? Yeah, we know. Thank you. Didn't ask that. Members accept those apologies. Thank you. Moving on, we've got a number of sets of minutes to go forward at this point. So first of all, the minutes of the meeting which took place on February the 13th, 2023. Go through them. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been brought to my attention that there is a slight omission in the minutes from the 13th of February. It refers to the Cabinet resolution of the budget line items that were passed by Cabinet. They need to be read into the minutes of the actual council meeting as the approved budget for 23-24. So I would move that they are approved subject to the line items being read into the minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Does that need a seconder? Looking for a seconder for that, Councillor Golby. Councillor Condacall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll remember at the meeting last February, questions 4, 5 and 6 were attacks on myself, and I did request on each of those the right to reply. I would like that right to reply, request being turned down, to be minuted, as otherwise the minutes do not reflect the fact I'm very unhappy with the questions being used to attack me. So if you could just minute that I was requested to reply and the request was denied, that would be most useful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, the minutes are for accuracy only in relation to the agenda items, not in relation to items that are actually questions. It's not a debate, Councillor Condacall. What's your point?
My point is that every single word that Councillor Golby was minuted, not a single word of mine was. These minutes are deflammatory.
Councillor Condacall,
I would like it minuted that I did not agree with them and I wanted the right to reply. Now, you can decide not to give me the right to reply, and you can decide not to minute that fact, but that means the council is bullying me because it's printing minutes that are defamatory to me and not even giving me the note that I disagreed with them. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. The decision that I made at the time, I believe, was correct, and there'll be no change to that. So we've got a recommendation in relation to the vote on the minutes as presented today, with one amendment in relation to line of the budget be inserted. All those in favour of those minutes? Any against? Six. Thank you, that's recorded. So that's item 13, that's the one, so that's that one, sorry. Too many papers to sign here. That's that one. Thank you. Moving on then to the next set of minutes, which were 29th of March. 29th of March was an extraordinary council meeting in relation to civic honours. And those minutes, sorry, you got the minutes there. Yes, thank you. Councillor Wilson, you move those minutes. And any seconder for that? Councillor Croft. All those in favour of those minutes as printed? Any against? Any abstentions? That's agreed then. I'll sign those minutes. Thank you. Moving on, we have more. A second extraordinary meeting on the 29th of March, which related to the management team structure. Do we have a proposer for those, move those minutes? Councillor Wilson, any Councillor Croft? Those are moved and seconded. Councillor Condacor, you wish to speak to those minutes?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like it minuted that we had a debate about whether we should hold it in public or not, and that's not recorded in the minutes. I know we don't have to, but I think we should for correctness and completeness. Thank you.
The debates are not normally minuted, and it's the correct record as far as I can see. So members happy to vote on that. The minutes are recorded as proposed. Those in favour? Any against? Councillor Condacor, Councillor Wright against. Thank you. Sorry, I haven't got my microphone on then, Councillor Downs. You are now.
Okay, thanks, Chair. It's the paperwork's been submitted, but it hasn't been updated yet on the system. I am a co-director of a company called Little Caesars Donuts, and I've also got a contract with the council for a market pitch on Wednesday and on Saturday every week in the Nuneaton Town Centre. That's it. Thank you.
I'm sure those those interests are declared. Thank you for that. And I've got Councillor Evans as well.
Mr Mayor, I have to declare that I'm no longer employed by the House of Commons and I'm employed by the Local Government Association, of which this council is a member.
Thank you for that update. Any other declarations? I'm sure if, whilst during debate or during the meeting, any items do come up, that members will declare the interest as necessary. Thank you. Moving on, I have some very pleasant duties to perform this evening in relation to the Mayor's announcements. Been fortunate this year to have a very strong team of supporters for my mayoral charity, Warwickshire Northamptonshire Air Ambulance, and those people are here with us tonight, and I would just like to recognise them with a recommendation, just like to recognise them with the Mayor's Award for Communities. The people that we're here to, or I'm here to recognise and thank is Josie Moore, Ray Moore, Roy Moore, Lella Gascoigne and Merv Lawrence. If you'd like to come down and I can present you with the certificates. Josie is a stalwart of Warwickshire, Northamptonshire Air Ambulance, and she works tirelessly throughout the year, raising funds for the Air Ambulance itself. And I think it's only fitting that we actually mark her commitment to the Air Ambulance and thank her officially as a council and as a mayor for the work that you've done this year, particularly in relation to my charity and the Air Ambulance. So can I just congratulate you and thank you and award you that's it. And the certificate. Just to recognise the work that you've done and really
Thanks
appreciate
very much.
it.
Thank you.
Who have we got next, Roy?
Roy.
The other end. Roy, can I give you that first of all? We've got, again, certificate. Roy, a lot of what happens through Nuneaton and Bedworth and Bulkington wouldn't happen without Roy making sure that people are there on time in the right place, and also his commitment when attending the stalls at Christmas and, well, all the charity stalls. He's there working as hard as anyone to ensure that we raise these funds for the Air Ambulance. So I really appreciate that and thank you very much for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oops, next, Lella. Anybody who's been out on the stalls or the markets or any of the shops, they'll see Lella there. Can I give you that?
Thank you.
Lella, again, as strong as Josie. She's there at all the meetings, all the events, all the fundraisers. Lella, again, I know Josie wouldn't manage without you, because without somebody behind you, you can't achieve these types of support. So it's well deserved, well recognised, and thank you very much for all your support
That's
this year.
great. Thank you.
Moving on. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, can I give you that?
Mine, is it?
Ray, I know you're always...
Drives the van.
I know. Ray drives the van, he's right. And unfortunately sometimes gets ticketed as well, which
Yeah.
wasn't planned,
Yeah,
but it's a hazard of the job,
That's
I
it,
suppose.
no
But
problem.
really appreciate the support that you give to the
That's
Air
all right.
Ambulance and to Josie as well,
Yeah.
because I know Josie, she's only got to say, we're going here and you're there. So it's really appreciated. And again, I think, you know, you should be recognised for the work that
Thank
you've done
you,
for
thank
the
you.
Air Ambulance, not just for this year, but all the years
Yeah.
as your colleagues have.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Last but not least, we've got Merv Lawrence. I can give you that one first of all. Merv has been a big supporter of the Air Ambulance this year, organising events, nights out, quizzes, and also, more often not, the ABBA nights, which have been absolutely fantastic and have been supported by a lot of people around the area. I know you've worked tremendously hard to get people coming along. I mean, they're sold out anyway, I know that. Because you make sure that when you put an event on, it's sold out, which, again, in turn raises funds for the Air Ambulance. So it's really appreciated the support that you've given us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and we'll do it all again next year.
Thanks. If you want to have a seat, you're more than welcome. We are moving on with the council business. Can I just thank all of you for the work that you've done this year. I know there's still more to do, and we've got plans for that. But thank you very much for coming along this evening, and appreciate that, and I hope that recognise that the work that you've all done. Thank you. Also, just turning the clock back slightly, members will recall that at the last meeting we held a Freeman of the Borough Award for Mr. Dave Leach. Dave has sent me a really nice thank you letter, and it's here if anybody wants to read it. It's available for you to see, but it's really beautiful, and thank you for what we said on that day. But really worth looking at. If members want to have a look at that. Thank you very much for that. I have no other mayoral announcements at this stage. We'll look to the leader, see if he's got any announcements. No. So we move on then to item 6, public participation. Public participation. The first question I have is from, Mrs. Michelle Condacore, who submitted a question to the council. Mrs. Condacore.
Thank you. As a regular visitor, I view Nuneaton's Museum and Art Gallery as a massive asset to the borough. It was very disappointing to see that it was closed over part of the Easter weekend, the reason given being staff shortages. There have also been rumours on social media that the museum will be closed for a year whilst the extension is built. I hope this is not true. Please, would the portfolio holder clarify the situation regarding staffing and opening hours and confirm that the museum will not be closed entirely during the building works for the extension? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Markham, did you wish to respond?
Yes, please. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your question. The operational delivery and opening times at the museum are actually under review following the council budget setting process, which included a reduction of staff to open the building and deliver its programme of activity. Whilst this process is happening, despite the best efforts of the team, it is not always able to manage to open the museum fully. In relation to the future extension and refurbishment of the museum and art gallery, in order to achieve the works, the building will be closed for a period of time which has not yet been confirmed. The development will include not only putting up 2 new extensions, but extensive works to the ground floor, including replacing mechanical and electrical equipment, as well as works to the roof. For the safety of visitors, staff, contractors, and the precious collections the museum cares for, it will not be possible to open to the public during the construction period. We are, however, looking at the feasibility to have certain activities of the museum, such as readings, at a different location.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Moving on to question 2, I have Mr. Sam Margrave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, along with many residents, am concerned about the condition of our roads, street signs and street furniture in Bedworth and Nuneaton, including some parts of our town centres, for example, Griff Roundabout, Donathorne Avenue in Nuneaton and George Street in Bedworth. While this is in many respects a matter for the Conservative-run County Council, it's an issue that really concerns people in our borough, and it deserves to be raised in this chamber on behalf of local people. We need action from the Borough Council, who used to run highways and repair our roads when they were in charge. As a driver, I've noticed the roads being left in an increasingly poor condition, and have myself had my wheels balanced or replaced because of the impact of potholes. This situation can't continue. Our roads and pavements here in Nuneaton and Bedworth seem to be deteriorating, and while I appreciate we've had difficult weather or increased movement of heavy goods vehicles due to housing developments, it's no excuse. For years now, the roads have been left or filled in poorly, only to have the problem again days later, and often issues aren't addressed when reported. When I travelled to the south of the county, I noticed that the roads there seemed in much better condition than here. Nuneaton and Bedworth always seems to lose out to Warwickshire. That is why I've launched a petition at change.org/pothole petition to fix our roads in Nuneaton and Bedworth. I'm asking for the two councils in our area to create a task force to tackle head-on the issue of potholes and to replace or fix and clean road signs or street furniture in our borough. That means undertaking a review to see why the north of the county is so poorly served and to take action to fill in potholes, to make our borough the clean, tidy and pleasant place it once was. Will the leader of the council support this campaign and write to the leader of the Tory-run county council in Warwick to express concerns about the state of local roads and footpaths here in Nuneaton and Bedworth? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Margrave. Councillor Wilson, did you wish to respond?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's pleasing to see that Mr Margrave has returned to more local issues since he had a little sojourn off bashing the bishops. But he knows that he's answered part of his question already, because indeed he quite rightly identified that this is a county council issue and not something which we as a borough council have any control over. He is harking back to the 70s and possibly the 80s in terms of when this authority had any responsibility for roads. Indeed, we used to have education and health responsibilities in the dim and distant past, and we no longer have them. Whilst personally I would love to see them return to the Borough Council, we are where we are, and local government, in my view, doesn't need any further reorganisation in Warwickshire. He also partly identifies some of the problem as well in terms of the weather. It doesn't take a genius to work out, Mr Mayor, that we have had a very wet winter, and it has continued to be wet. That means that when the water does actually get into the roads and they freeze, the ice, when it expands, forces the tarmac to then expand and cause cracks. That is simple physics, Mr Mayor, not something which is a political issue. Also, whilst residents might not appreciate this, there is also the COVID impact that we have to factor in. During the 2 years of COVID that we had, whilst it may seem a long time ago, there were works which were actually programmed in during the 2 years that we had COVID, most of which had to be delayed and rescheduled and reprofiled into further years on top of the existing maintenance which will have already been needed for the post-COVID years. So we are in a situation not of our making and not of our control, and I don't blame my colleagues in the south of the county at Shire Hall for that. Indeed, I happen to know that a number of the county councillors, certainly on this side of the chamber, are most vociferous in terms of their representations regarding the state of our roads, where it happens to happen. And I've been given a list just for May 2023 of the works being conducted in Nuneaton and Bedworth. There are works scheduled on Woodlands Lane and Woodlands Road in Bedworth. There's also work on Bedworth Lane in Bedworth. There is work on Exall Road and New Road in Kersley, and indeed Milby Drive in Weddington, which we all know has needed works for years, despite the previous county councillor. I've also been passed some works in just one particular area of the borough, from courtesy of Councillor Markham, which I thank her for, about the works planned for her patch and some other patches actually, which include the entire carriageway of the A444 being redone during this financial year, a footpath being done in Newtown Road, and the other works that I mentioned earlier. In addition, Mr Margrave may be interested to know, I don't know whether it's been delivered round his neck of the woods yet, but we have, as many residents will know, the local rock, which gets delivered through a number of households in the east of Nuneaton, certainly. And there is an article in here, if I just find it, that says that as part of the spring budget, a further £2.8 million has been allocated to the county council for pothole repairs. I do not believe it is a unique situation to Nuneaton and Bedworth. Indeed, I have to travel to the south of the county at least weekly as part of my day job. Believe it or not, not all politicians in this chamber are full-time politicians. We are normal and have day jobs. And when I have to go to the south of the county, actually there are a number of issues going on there too. Indeed, Mr. Mayor, part of the problem that I see on Facebook half of the time with social media is people complaining that roadworks are going on and causing traffic issues. So you can't win if you do, Mr. Mayor, and you can't win if you don't. In respect of the campaign that Mr. Margrave is raising, we all know it is a pseudo-campaign designed towards his new Bedworth Independence Party, even though he lives in Attleborough, so nothing to do with Bedworth, and I will not sign up to his new political campaign or support anyone who happens to have the view, and this is a quote, Mr. Mayor, not mine, this is a quote, that pride, i.e. gay pride, Mr. Mayor, is the nation's next Jimmy Savile. That was posted on Mr. Margrave's Twitter on the 20th of June 2022. We will not align ourselves as a council or any of our
Can we have quiet in the
councillors
public gallery, please?
with someone who holds such abhorrent views.
If we're not going to have quiet, what I'll have to do is suspend the meeting, which no questions will be asked or answered. So if you just listen to the answers that are being given, please. If you're not going to listen to the answers, I'll suspend the meeting. I'll not take any comments from the public gallery outside of the questions that have been submitted. Just a moment, Councillor Margrave. Have you finished, Councillor Wilson? Sorry, Mr. Margrave, former councillor who knows how the process works anyway. Councillor Wilson, had you finished? Right, you've got a supplementary, Mr. Margrave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Wilson acknowledges there is a problem. This isn't political. In fact, none of this has been political. What this is about is, building a better borough and getting something done for our community. So I would ask the leader of the council whether he would look to ask for the OSP or a council committee just to look at the quality of our roads, and for the borough council to write to the county council who ask more to be done, so that that money that he mentions comes to Nuneaton and Bedworth, because there is a problem with our roads, and this place is meant to be a voice for local people on all issues. There are lots of issues that are mentioned.
Councillor Margrave, just keep to the answer, please.
Okay. And I would
Sorry,
finally ask Mr. Mayor just for an
Margrave, keep
apology for the abuse and the Punch and Judy politics from the leader of the opposition, who's very abusive constantly whenever I come here, and I'm a resident.
Mr. Margrave,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to shut you off now. I'm sorry. You're going off the question that was asked. Mr. Wilson. Sorry. There's so many people moving around.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a reason why.
Councillor Wilson, as the elected representative and leader of this borough, would you like to respond?
Yes, I would, Mr. Mayor, because I would start off by saying there is a reason why I'm a councillor and he is a Mr. Even the Labour Party couldn't stand him as a councillor, which is why he is no longer one. I think that says something. Mr. Mayor, we have the comments.
Mr. Margrave, you asked a question. You're receiving it. Mr. Margrave, you asked. Please sit down a moment, Councillor. Councillor Wilson.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Margrave.
Just sit down a moment, please. Mr. Margrave, you asked the question. You're going to receive an answer. Mr. Margrave, there was no abuse there. There was no abuse, Mr. Margrave. I am not going to tolerate you interrupting from the gallery. Right. I've said I will suspend the meeting. The meeting is now suspended.
All rise.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Right, there has been a question asked, and I intend to allow Councillor Wilson to respond to that question as succinctly as possible, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The simple answer is no. I have no power to direct the OSPs here to do anything as a member of the Cabinet, but also it does not fall within any of the OSP's remit or responsibility. It sits with the County Council. If anyone wishes to raise it with the County Council, they can email their democratic services and ask for it to be raised through their channels.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Condicle, we haven't got to Councillor questions yet.
Mr Mayor, I'd like this matter referred to a scrutiny committee so it can be debated in a civilised manner. We've got lots of troubles that cleave to our roads, and we're getting only 4 resurfacings in Nuneaton, where Rugby's getting 10. So I do think this needs to be discussed properly in a civilised manner. So I using the Constitution, I can ask for this matter to go to a scrutiny panel, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
You can Councillor Condicle, you can ask that. I'm just looking round to see. Yeah, I'm just looking round to see if that's seconded. Councillor Wright? That's seconded. So, no, we just move to the vote. No, it's just move to the vote. So those in favour that this is referred to a scrutiny panel? Those against? Any abstentions? 2. That is lost. So we move on to the next question, which is question 3 from Ms Nikki Smith. Ms Nikki Smith, you with us? Yep. Would you like to ask your question, please?
Our goal at Bedworth Civic Hall CIC is to save the Civic Hall and Arts Centre, to ensure it remains in community ownership, run by and for local people. What will the criteria be to decide who is, as Councillor Wilson said at the Cabinet meeting of the 12th of April, the best bid? And will there be a requirement for all bidders to provide the same level of community use that was previously provided at the Civic Hall and Arts Centre to maintain a vital service for Bedworth, Bulkington and our whole borough?
Thank you, Ms Smith. Councillor Markham, there are a number of questions on a similar topic. Did you want me to ask the public for those questions?
I was going to respond individually.
Yep, that's fine. If you wish to respond separately. Councillor Markham.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. The criteria for the next stage of the process will be provided to relevant parties in the near future. This will include information to ensure that the facility can be managed and operated within accordance of a venue of the size and complexity, and also be financially sustainable. It will be third parties' decision as to what they commit to for outcomes around community use, private shows and other entertainment delivery, but ultimately it will need to be financially viable for the medium long-term operation by a partner.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Got a further question from Mr Rob Batterby. Mr Rob Batterby, please.
This question also relates to the Civic Hall. The Council asked for expressions of interest from those who will run all the services that take place at the Civic Hall and Arts Centre, including community uses. You've asked us to provide the existing service, the Civic Hall and Arts. Civic Hall and Arts Centre is a themed community centre catering to a wide variety of culture-based community groups. The update doesn't mention the Arts Centre or other space. Will this be included in any lease arrangements? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Batterby. Councillor Markham, did you wish to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and again, thank you for the question. The Cabinet report on the 12th of April mentioned the venue. This includes all spaces within the Civic Hall building, including the space previously used by the Arts Centre. To be clear, based on a point raised in your question, the council have never specified that the existing service must be provided within the venue, only that during the EOI process, a plan for the potential viable operation of the Civic Hall building with no financial contribution from the Borough Council be provided.
Thank you. Question 5, Ms Rachel Hardy.
Thank you. The Cabinet recently decided to pursue a lease option for the Civic Hall. Will the lease be offered if the community group takes it on at a peppercorn rent lease and with a lease longer than 15 years, as with the Nuneaton's Abbey Theatre, and in line with requirements of the Community Ownership Fund, so the Bedworth community volunteers get a good deal as Nuneaton when it comes to taking on the council asset? And if not, why is the peppercorn rent or long lease good enough for a Nuneaton theatre? Really sorry. Just a minute, I'm losing my train of thought. Why is it good enough for the Nuneaton theatre, for the community to run the venue, but not Bedworth Community Group to run the Civic Hall? Thanks.
Thank you, Ms Batterby. Sorry. Put the right one. Councillor again, isn't it? Sorry, Miss Hardy. Sorry about that. I've got Councillor Markham. Did you wish to respond?
Yes, please, Mr Mayor. And again, thank you for the question. The council has numerous lease agreements with different people, organisations, and they're not all the same. The Abbey Theatre does not have an up-to-date lease because Labour failed to renew it 12 years ago, and we're currently in discussion and looking to renew it for them. The appropriate level of rent, peppercorn or otherwise, will be informed by the nature and condition of the property and the wider legislative policy and or financial benefits and issues. As stated at Cabinet on the 18th of April, each applicant will negotiate both rents and length of lease. Therefore, the details of the terms of the lease will be provided during the lease process and through negotiations with the successful applicant at that stage.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Question 6, Mr Paul Hardy. Is he not here? Councillor Markham, will you ensure that a response is provided, written response is provided for Mr Paul Hardy's question, please? Moving on, question 7, Mr Steve Young. Mr Steve Young with us this evening? No, Mr Steve Young. Again, that's question 2. Councillor Markham, again, can you make sure that a response is provided to Mr Young as well, please? And finally, question 8, public questions. Question 8, Mr Alan Baxter. If you'd like to ask your question, please.
Cheers. Hi, everyone. Back in financial year 2013-2014, the grant given to Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council by HM Government was almost £5 million. Now, a decade later, it is zero. It's been cut by Conservative austerity. In the intervening time across the borough, we have seen public loos demolished, flower beds removed. We have been told that we cannot afford a civic hall or community centres. Education and outreach programmes have been cut. Britain in Bloom is a thing of memory, and the town centre is currently a mess. What action has this council taken to lobby Marcus Jones MP, that's our Conservative MP, and HM Government to highlight the damage and the limitation of opportunity that these austerity cuts are doing to boroughs like our own, and what responses have been given? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Baxter. Councillor Croft, did you wish to respond?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I think that on the circulated list of questions, it's cut the top off of Mr Baxter's question, but for I did receive the full question in advance. So before I go any further, Mr Mayor, I must begin by rejecting the premise of the question, because Mr Baxter refers to the government grant to this council reducing from just shy of 5 million to 0 today, But what he does not refer to, or does not specify, is that nearly 5 million in 2013-14 referred to two specific grants, which was called the Revenue Support Grant and the Local Council Tax Support Grant, which we now no longer receive. Since then, the way the government funds councils has changed. Instead of RSG, we now receive the new homes bonus, which will be £1.3 million in 23-24, and the lower tier services grant, which will be about £143,000 in 23 and 24, which are our core funding unallocated grants. But we also receive numerous other grants from the government earmarked for specific items, such as £200,000 for homelessness, £80,000 of the new burdens funding, £600,000 in benefits administration grant, £250,000 in disability housing payments. So, Mr. Mayor, as the RSG wound down, the government also adjusted our formula for the retention of business rates, and the upshot is that this year we will retain almost £2 million more in NNDR than we did a decade ago. And this doesn't include the grants we've had out of government for capital funding, which I will come on to shortly. So, Mr. Mayor, while the model of our funding has changed, central government now finances councils on the basis much more of KPIs and earmarks, the suggestion that our level of grant from the government is now zero is not true. And of course, Mr. Mayor, it is true that our unallocated funding has decreased. This is in part due to growth in our cost base and in the inflationary situation, which I discussed in the budget in February, but also it is due to the inescapable fact that as a country, we have been living beyond our means for far too long. This country has had a budget deficit for over 20 years in its national finances. In 2010, it was 10% of GDP. You can't go on borrowing that, and you can't go on buying more from the world than you're producing or selling. The idea that government can play Santa Claus is now long gone. So over the past 13 years, there have been absolutely necessary corrections in government expenditure. What Mr. Baxter calls conservative austerity, I call the economic facts of life. Everyone who works and makes their own way in life knows that you have to make ends meet. You have to balance your spending with your earning. And if you take on any debt, it should be for assets and investments that will bring you a return in the long run. They understand the old truths that the world does not owe us a living. And that applies very much to countries and councils just as much to people. And that's why we have reviewed, and we are reviewing, every service we provide to ensure that we are only focusing on those essential services which we alone as an authority can provide leadership on. We must retrench into our core business areas, such as regeneration, sanitation and refuse, economic development, housing, and the homelessness support I referred to a moment ago. In an age of economic realism and hardship, the choice between Britain in bloom and housing the homeless is no choice at all. And finally, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Baxter's question referred to our lobbying Marcus Jones, our MP here in Nuneaton. Now, Mr. Mayor, it would be completely inappropriate for me to reveal the details of private conversations, and I'm not going to do that. But what I will say is that we make representations to the national government in advance of every budget-setting process, and Marcus has been a tireless voice within Parliament and within the national administration for funding for Nuneaton. Marcus's lobbying and interventions have helped us secure £23.2 million from the Towns Fund, £13 million from the Future High Streets Fund, £4 million from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and he assisted in helping us win the £15 million of the Levelling Up Fund for Bedworth Leisure Centre. All in all, he's won £46 million for Nuneaton alone over the past few years. Not to mention the areas that don't actually concern this council. So he's helped us get funding for the new primary and secondary schools that are opening up in the north and the east of Nuneaton. Now, you will notice, Mr. Mayor, that these figures are considerably higher than the £5 million referred to in Mr. Baxter's question. That is because this government is committed to investing in capital projects that will have long-term return rather than short-term general spending. And of course, Mr. Mayor, as these programmes bear fruit, they will assist our budget position by growing our local economy and increasing our business rates income. So, Mr. Mayor, I reject the premise of the question. We are still funded by the government on much more economically realist grounds, and with the government support, with the support of Marcus Jones MP and the leadership of this administration, we will fulfil our programme of transformation in this council and our programme of regeneration and development in this borough, and we will restore that economic opportunity and civic pride that was referred to in the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. A supplementary in response in relation to the answer that you've just been given. Yes, certainly.
Would you say the current economic position of the council is weaker or stronger than in 2013 or 14?
I think the answer that was previously given did cover most of that. So do you want to respond further, Councillor Croft?
I refer him to the budget speech I gave in February, which set out at great length the inflationary pressures we have faced, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. That concludes the public questions. Then we move on to questions by members. I've got 5 submitted by members questions. So we move on to the member questions then. First of all, sorry, just take a moment or two while some of the members of the public are leaving. So we'll just hold fire a moment while the public leave the gallery. Some of the members of the public have now left the gallery. We'll move on with the questions by members. The first question is Councillor Evans. Can I invite you to ask your question, please?
Mr Mayor, could I ask the Deputy Leader of the Council what steps the Council is taking to improve home insulation in the housing stock for the most vulnerable residents in the borough?
Councillor Golby, did you wish to respond?
Yes, Mr Mayor, thank you. And thanks for the question. It gives me an opportunity to sing the praises of the teams that are dealing with quite a lot of stuff at the moment. So the Council has taken a number of steps to improve home insulation for our social housing stock. My team has so far insulated 414 homes with external wall insulation and are predicted to insulate a further 191 homes by March 2025. External wall insulation not only keeps out the cold, but it also reduces something called cold bridging, which I've spoke about in the chamber before. And this can have the added effect of causing damp and mould in the properties if they're not sufficiently vented by the tenants, which does actually happen sometimes. We are targeting the worst insulated properties to maximise the benefits to our residents. With regards to loft insulation and the topping up of loft insulation, this is captured within the Council's roofing programme on an annual basis. We also have ad hoc requests for roofing insulation top-ups from tenants. These go through the normal capital projects route where we'll survey to check what the insulation levels are, and if necessary, we will insulate to bring up to a decent home standards. We also do proactive condition surveys too. We are doing a raft of those, and they've been carried out. They will be carried out by an external contractor, and the level of insulation within the loft will be picked up when these surveys are completed, together with other elements that we need to understand the overall condition of our properties. And this is going to happen across our estate. So we need to get a good picture of what we've got, where we've got it, and what we need to do. So the undertaking of the condition surveys is to be complete by December 23. And again, the aim is to understand what we've got, where we've got it, and the level of investment we need for our council housing stock over a longer period of time. So I'm not looking just at the short-term fix. We're actually looking at a longer-term period as well, so 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And the level of insulation will be an important factor and considered within this. So currently the total investment that we've got covering my tenure and up to 2025 will be more than £13.5 million for all of this. It will result in over 600 homes being improved once the project has been completed. But insulating these homes is not enough. This figure also includes additional measures such as replacement doors, windows, and where necessary boilers. So we're looking at the whole piece. And just because there will be criticisms about the boilers, clearly, the race to achieve carbon neutrality and net zero is not the priority of the most vulnerable people who we deal with. Actually having a warm, safe home is. So that is what we're concentrating on. The aim is primarily to provide that for residents, and an unintended consequence of that is actually the reduction of fuel poverty, which is pounds in people's pockets, which is another driver for doing all this. And then carbon net zero will follow as a consequence of all the other stuff that we're doing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Councillor Shires, you've got a question. You'd like to put your question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The grant awarded by the Police Crime Commissioner for Camp Hill to install measures to reduce antisocial behaviour, including lighting and CCTV cameras. Can you confirm who will have overall responsibility to monitor and maintain the cameras and lights, and will the lighting remain on throughout the night? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Councillor Golby, did you wish to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Shires, because it gives me the opportunity to, again, remind people of the good work that my teams are doing. So the communities team applied for Safer Street funding from the PCC's office, and we were successful in the bid, and we were awarded £130,000. 1 minute. So we were awarded £130,000. That was to do projects in the Camp Hill area, which will include improving entrances and site hardening to deter motorbikes, which I know is an issue in the area. We've had many discussions about that. We're in enhancing entrances for pedestrians and disabled residents where possible. We're adding bits of path that's missing and new metal trip rails, repairing existing stretches of the trip rails and removing obsolete trip rails. And yes, there will be lighting and CCTV as part of this project. So the lampposts that have got CCTV cameras on will be on all night. The other lights will be on the usual timing frame that we've got until we've spoken or we've gone through the process with the county to add it into all the other stuff that's going on in Camp Hill with regards to lights, because not all the lights go off in Camp Hill. We don't turn the lights off wholesale. The cameras will be monitored and maintained in exactly the same way as all the other cameras that we monitor and maintain, and it will be done in conjunction with the police, and they will have access as and when required.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Supplemental to the answer.
Thank you very much for that. You've mentioned timings. Can I just ask specifically with regard to timings around Stubbs's and Dingle and the Dingle area, as we know, a lot of the antisocial behaviour occurs sort of during the evenings, and it's actually when it's dark that people are feeling particularly unsafe to walk about. And also you say that the cameras and everything's going to be monitored in conjunction with the police. Has additional funding then been put in place to ensure that the resources are there to act on any antisocial behaviour that's occurring, or to ensure that we have the service there to ensure that everything's monitored correctly? Because at the minute, I think there's potentially an issue there.
That's the question. I think Councillor Golby be able to answer that. Councillor Golby.
Thank you. Sorry, the lights. Say again what it... You were saying about timing. Yeah. Yeah. So the timings will be as when the lights first go on, we have to put them on as per the timings that the county control. We then apply to have the lights put on. And yes, I agree with the antisocial behaviour and everything else. However, as I've just pointed out, Camp Hill has the lights on, and it's the highest crime area that we've got in Nuneaton. So maybe turning the lights off might deter people from ASB rather than allow them the safe space to commit ASB. We've got anecdotal evidence. In fact, it's not anecdotal evidence that in other areas where the lights have gone off, ASB is dropped. So it's potentially the wrong thing to do, maybe. Who knows? But we don't control the timing of the lights. We put them in. The county then control them, but there is a process to get the county to add them on to the same schedules as all the rest of Camp Hill.
It's just one question, I'm
Yeah.
afraid. I think what you need to do, Councillor, is perhaps take it outside of the meeting after. I'm
Yeah.
sure Councillor Golby is more than happy to
Yeah.
look
And
into any particular issues you have.
As far as the monitoring and maintaining, that's just in addition to what we're doing. I can't tell you whether operationally the police have got extra people to respond if there is an incident in Camp Hill at any given time, because that's operational police stuff. I can't tell you that. It's probably worth taking up with them, but I think we all know that the areas where these cameras are going in are hotspots for ASB anyway. So it's in addition to what's already going on, not instead of something else somewhere else.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Councillor Condicore, can I invite you to ask your question, please?
Right, Mr Mayor, this is for the portfolio for planning. Over the last decade, we've had major housing developments completed in Wellington and St Nicholas wards that have yet to have their open spaces and play areas adopted by the Borough Council. Some of this was initially due to developers, but it seems that the council has not had the capacity to chase up the process over the last few years. For open spaces, the adoption process takes 12 months because of a handover period. Can the Cabinet Member for Planning explain when the Planning Department will be able to coordinate the start of the developers' adoption handover period for the Davidsons, Church Fields, Taylor Wimpey Lower Farm, which are both on the Wenton Road, and the first phase of the Bellway off the Longshoot? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condicore. Councillor Smith, do you wish to reply?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Condicore, for the question. This issue that you raise is an important one, and your concerns are shared by myself and the other ward members for Weddington and St Nicholas. That area has seen an unprecedented amount of development over recent years, and it's right to expect that open spaces and play areas are adopted and maintained by the council at the earliest opportunity for the benefit of the many new and existing residents. Historically, there's been no fixed timescale set for the adoption of these areas, and typically this would rely on the developer preparing the sites to a standard acceptable to the council that complies with the original drawings and terms, and they need to pass a council inspection before they can be adopted. It would be wrong of this council to accept maintenance of any area that does not meet the agreed standards and may burden the taxpayer with unnecessary costs for maintenance and repairs. Enforcement in this area has been difficult because of ongoing capacity problems in the team due to unfilled vacancies. However, this will be resolved in the next couple of weeks with vacancies filled and an enforcement team back to capacity. To support the potential enforcement, there's some work to do tightening the system. I've asked officers to review Section 106 trigger points to focus developers on the need to deliver these open spaces and play areas earlier in the process and provide us with an enforceable timeline should they fall short. With regards to the specific issues in your question around Davison's Church Fields, Taylor Wimpey's Lower Farm and the first phase of Bellway off the Longshoot, these are all at various stages of completion, and whilst I won't go into detail now, I have asked officers to set up a briefing session both for yourself and the other ward councillors for the area so you can better understand the detail and ask any questions you may have at that point.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Condicore.
Yeah, just a brief supplementary. Thank you very much for your answer, because obviously this is going to be a bigger problem, and they're the very first 3 developments we've had in the borough in this thing.
Where's the question, Councillor Condicore?
The question is, can we have a date and sort of almost like have a KPI because some of these things have been going on for years. So it would be useful for your officers, if we could, Councillor Smith, have a KPI of how long it is after the development's finished before the open spaces are developed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Councillor Smith, did you wish to add anything?
Yeah, very briefly, that will be included in the briefing. I've asked them to look at this, get all the specifics from the developers and give you an exact position of where we're at, what the hurdles might be and when we might expect some resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Damon Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the Cabinet meeting on the 8th of March this year, Councillor Condacor claimed that the housing teams are failing to do maintenance jobs on and around our estates. He claimed that the councillors stopped estate walkabouts, which I know is not the case because I've been on some myself recently, and that grounds maintenance is virtually non-existent in lots of places within his ward. He also said the maintenance is really appalling, and then went on to claim that he was at Carisbrook Road where nothing has been done and a bag of fly tipping had been left for 3 years. Can Councillor Golby please advise us, are these claims correct?
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Golby, did you wish to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I certainly do wish to respond. Thank you, Councillor Brown. And to put it in a concise sentence, no, these claims are nowhere near correct. So firstly, I'll address the point of estate walkabouts. Estate walkabouts, for those that don't know, are when officers would literally walk around housing estates. Yeah, good use of time? Probably not. So they were stopped, yep, but not by me. They were stopped by the pandemic. Plus, when we did do them, hardly anybody turned up. So, you know, they were time-consuming and proved of little value. Sometimes the staff were out for hours, walking miles around areas with few issues. So we, under my tenure, decided to do things a little bit differently. We examined where we get most of our complaints from, and we're targeting regular visits to these places. Far more efficient, and we're getting much better results. We also have a focused programme of block inspections, which involves tenancy management officers fully inspecting all their blocks of flats on a monthly basis. These are quantifiably where we receive most of our complaints from. We've got items left in communal areas, fly tipping, antisocial behaviour, all of that sort of thing. And the block inspections also double down on fire safety, because we all know fire safety is quite important. So this new approach not only ensures we meet our responsibilities as a landlord in terms of regulatory fire reforms, but it's also provided better and more meaningful presence on our estates, as well as a fully accountable audit trail should issues have been raised. Councillor Condacor has been advised previously by my housing team that we are carrying out monthly block inspections, the reasons why, and with the emphasis on the importance of fire safety. We are looking at reintroducing estate walkabouts in the summer, but if we do, we are likely to have a focus initially on the areas with high levels of ASB or estate issues, because that is where the time is best spent. So despite this, my team have also offered councillors walkabouts in their wards. As Councillor Brown has just alluded to, he's been on one. Even if they felt that there aren't any issues. Now, Councillor Condacor has been offered estate walkabouts, and he actually attended one. So it's entirely wrong of him to say that we've cancelled them. So now to address the claims, I mean, it's ludicrous. So now to address the claims that grounds maintenance is virtually non-existent in lots of places and in his ward where maintenance is really appalling. Again, I had the customer service teams check for calls logged, and I've asked my teams to confirm if they had any direct communication with Councillor Condacor relating to grounds maintenance issues. Do you want to guess? Do you want to guess what the answer is? No. So it was a big fat no. So they've received nothing. In terms of grounds maintenance issues, Councillor Condacor has been repeatedly advised he must log calls for the teams to respond to. Not only that, but he has been repeatedly advised on the grounds maintenance programmes that we've got. So again, to clarify, on the public record, shrub bed maintenance is cutting top down once every 5 years or sooner, or if it's causing any major issues, we will attend to things. And cut back is the sides up to 3 times a year. The works are generally brought forward if there is a risk of severe health and safety issues or nuisance, but no work is prioritised for aesthetic purposes. So, to double check the claims made at Cabinet, my team went out and photographed the area which had been mentioned. There were no issues. Shrubs are being well maintained, and in one case scheduled for removal because they're causing a problem. We're already on it. The team also checked other housing areas in Weddington, just to, get it all out there. Knighton Road, Redhaddon, the Chines, Carrisbutt Road, and the bungalows, all sites are well within grounds maintenance specification. But Councillor Kandaka already knows this because there are no calls logged. The teams also received no further contact from Councillor Kandaka after they emailed him asking for clarification of the issues raised in March. So, going forward, my team will not be attending any complaint Councillor Kandaka raises in this chamber unless it is logged through the correct process. That is the way we do things, and that is the way that my team's time is best spent. He's publicly slated my staff for no reason other than perhaps they work for me. He's demoralised and angered them and done nothing more than wasted a lot of time and resource. This isn't the first time he's stood in this chamber either and criticised my staff unnecessarily on grounds maintenance. Once is a mistake, more than that could be seen as malicious, especially after all the advice he's already been given by officers. So if any of my team or of the grounds maintenance team want to put a formal standards complaint through on this matter, I will happily support them. And in reference to the grab bag, it was supposedly left for 3 years on housing land. However, it wasn't housing land. It probably wasn't even left for 3 years either because it was pretty clean when we went and had a look. I've got the pictures, I'll send it to you. However, we did take steps to remove it, which after 3 years is more than a failing Councillor Kandaka did.
Thank you, thank you. Councillor Condacor, you've tried this one previously and you know there is no right to reply. It's a question by members to Cabinet members. Mrs. Condacor, I'm not going to entertain any further interruptions from the public gallery.
I haven't said anything other than my question. All I can say is...
Mrs. Condacor, I am going to suspend the meeting and ask for you to be removed from this meeting. The meeting is now suspended.
rise.
I will take no further interruptions from the gallery whatsoever. The meeting will be suspended if that continues. It is a council meeting. The public have had their chance to speak. It is now in the council's purview. So we'll continue with the council meeting as set out. We're on member questions. Councillor Hammersley, can I invite you to ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Does the leader welcome the fact that we have received £719,000 from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund? And what does it mean to the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council? Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, I forgot to switch my microphone off then. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much to Councillor Hammersley for the question. Just to put the answer in some context, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund has allocated Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council just over £4 million for projects over 3 years, which we are now in year 2 of 3, of which £719,000 has been allocated in year 3, so that will be 24-25 for Bedworth Town Centre. Work has already been, as part of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, commissioned to look at the viability works on a possible replacement for the Bedworth indoor market. And that is part of the UK SPF funding in this current year. The consultants have already been commissioned, and they are looking at a couple of options, which include either repairing and upgrading the current indoor market, or whether there is a possibility of relocating the market to the core of the town centre in or around All Saints Square, which may include conversion of an existing building for use by small businesses or market traders, installation of new covered space with semi-permanent units for use by small businesses and market traders, sort of like the start-up units that we have now in the indoor market, and any other further options that could be identified to provide small businesses or market traders with the spaces that they need to trade in Bedworth. I think having £719,000 out of £4 million awarded to us is a fantastic achievement for Bedworth Town Centre and recognition of the importance that we hold of the future and viability and prosperity of Bedworth Town Centre. And I look forward to the results coming back to the council as to what the possible options will be for using that funding. And there will also be engagement at the relevant time with businesses and stakeholders in Bedworth Town Centre, and I've already had a conversation as part of the Bedworth Town Centre partnership with those who turned up about that and said that at the relevant time we could also go out to the Town Centre partnership and have that. But it is also part of a wider ambitious project, or projects I should say, plural, across the borough, which will include works to our great parks, works to our community parks as well, and also looking at funding that can be provided for local businesses to help them and stimulate the businesses within our town centres and the general borough area, because that is precisely what we need, Mr. Mayor, to help grow our borough in the right way, where we have higher paid, better value jobs in the borough, which will mean that there are people paying more into the borough, spending more in the borough, and generally helping the whole economic ecosystem of our town centres. And also, it should be noted, Mr. Mayor, that part of the works that we've had done as part of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund can be seen in action if you just walk literally 5 minutes from this very town hall. You can see that the grotesque lily pad fountain has been removed. And I have to say that the operatives who actually worked on that were outstanding, Mr. Mayor, because they have turned it around in a very short space of time. Indeed, a number of us who went to the artisan market, indeed, I believe Councillors Downs and Harbison were there trading, and Councillors Morton and Coventry Morton came along for a visit. We actually saw, and Councillors Tromans, we actually saw the workers there that very day on a Sunday doing the block pavement. So if that is what we can do there with outstanding work, I am very hopeful for the future of Bedworth Town Centre once we get the options evaluated and we know what the right direction is for the indoor market. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. That concludes member questions. Item 8, special urgency. There are none. So moving on to item 9, cabinet reports. The addendum, which is for questions only. So, any member have questions in relation to the cabinet report? Sorry, you need to move the cabinet report first, Councillor Wilson. One of those evenings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy to move the Cabinet report as printed, Mr. Mayor. It covers the meetings of the 8th of March and 12th of April. And one of the things I do want to give particular highlight to is the announcement that we had on the meeting of the 12th of April from Councillor Golby about the Knife Angel statue. I think that is an incredible piece of work which she has personally led on within the borough together with her officers, and will actually showcase not only the lily pad fountain area as a fantastic place to hold events within Nuneaton Town Centre, but actually do the critical education work that we need to do within Nuneaton and Bedworth and beyond, actually, because I am absolutely confident that we will have visitors from beyond our borough coming to see the angel statue, to actually come in, support our local economy, support our businesses as they come in, but do the critical education work about the danger and the cost, the very high human cost of knives. And I think Councillor Golby and her officers should be congratulated on the tremendous efforts they put in to achieve that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Does that need a seconder? It doesn't need a seconder, that, does it? We need a seconder for that, yes. I thought, yes. I thought we did, but Councillor Croft. Councillor Croft, you wish to... Sorry? Councillor Croft, then. Thank you. That opens up for debate. Councillor... Sorry, questions, I beg your pardon, not debate, it is questions only. Right, Councillor Condicore.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple of questions. I'll do them in order. So, Eton Leisure Centre Development Agreement. We had a big campaign, probably about 8 years ago, to save the 3G pitch. Will the public have a say in what's going to go forward? Because obviously we've got the change to this new McIntyre Academy and things have been done, but can Councillor Markham actually engage with the public on this so they can actually have some say on what access they can have with the new arrangements? Thank you.
Thank Councillor Condicore. Councillor Wilson, did you wish to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to respond on that one. As was explained to Councillor Condicore, this was an item considered on pink paper, so we have to be very careful about what is disclosed. But Councillor Markham is having discussions with the Matrix Academy Trust, not the McIntyre Academy Trust, about how the future operation of that particular site works. We do know it is a very old building with its own individual challenges, not unlike the Civic Hall, it has to be said, with, ironically enough, boilers. Because they are all, if you look at all the leisure centres that we have of that design, all of a certain age of the 1970s and are coming up. What residents will have an opportunity to do is engage in the process of Top Farm, which is where it has always been stated for a number of years now, whether it be Labour or Conservative administration, that we will focus on having key, excellent facilities at Top Farm, which are sustainable for the future, but actually divorce us from the messy, it has to be said, messy arrangements that we currently have with the Matrix Academy Trust, which are long-standing, because obviously it is a live school with children there and all the safeguarding issues that surround it, which actually suit no one. It's the worst of all worlds in some respects, because we don't have outright control and neither does the college. So whilst I will maintain the sensitivity of the pink papers, there will be an opportunity for residents to be engaged in the whole Top Farm process further on down the line, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. You had a second question, Councillor Condicore.
Thank you. Actually, that was the next item on the agenda, was the Top Farm leisure development. Obviously, it's a confidential thing again on pink paper, but the planning application for the phasing of Tot Farm has now been published, so that's in the public domain. And also the archaeology's data has started to be published, which shows we may actually have a Roman cemetery on the site of Tot Farm. And so I do ask, will the members be careful with their planning to actually make sure that they don't try and build a leisure centre and then discover that the Roman remains underneath? So just that risk analysis we need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Councillor Wilson, did you wish to pick that up?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that, Mr. Mayor. If indeed there is any archaeological remains that are under the site, they will be handled in the usual way through the proper channels, in discussion between our planning officers and Warwickshire County Council Archaeology, and we will await any recommendations which come from that. Beyond that, I can't second guess anything that happens there, Mr. Mayor. I am not an archaeologist, and neither is Councillor Condacor, so we will wait to see what report comes out from that.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. You have a further question, Councillor Condacor, and still on the Cabinet report.
Yeah, on the Cabinet, Civic Hall, we attended the meeting when you discussed the Civic Hall update on the 12th of April. There's a couple of things I'd just like clarity from, if I may. We chose between three options: leasing, selling, and whatever the other contract is. But one of the good questions I asked was, what is the capital value of the building? Because in deciding to lease it or sell it, the building had a book value, and no one's ever told me what the book value is for the Civic Hall, though it must exist in our accounts because we insure it and it's an asset. So can the Cabinet member try and establish that? And the second question is related. There was some uncertainty about moving a bed of partnership meeting somewhere else because of a conflict of interest, but you also said you didn't know who the other bidder was, so I don't know if you could clarify that aspect of the Cabinet meeting, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Councillor Wilson, did you wish to respond, or is it Councillor Markham or Councillor Croft?
I'll respond
on
that, Mr. Mayor. In relation to the first part of the question about the book price, that any evaluations of the value of the property will come later on in the lease tender process, where all the finer details will be worked out. I will not engage in speculation across the chamber about that, because there is a proper thought-through process which has to be maintained, and I will do nothing to jeopardise any bids that may happen or put anything out in the public domain about that. In regards of the second part of his question, it was the Bedworth Town Centre Partnership meeting that I was referring to. I don't believe I ever said that we don't know who the other bid is. I said there was another bid and I didn't say who that was. But I and other officers were aware of that bid, and so as not to, as I said before, potentially jeopardise any legal frameworks or procurement or tendering processes that go through that, I was not prepared to have any meeting on that site which could be interpreted as favouring one bidder over another. That would be completely inappropriate and, in my view, would undermine the whole process. There are only two bids, and it is precisely because we've had two bids that we have put them through to the next stage so that they can be evaluated and rigorously assessed, because if we had taken anyone out at this stage, there would be probably, as we have seen in meetings before, accusations of foul play which are not substantiated. But in order to enable both of them to go through, and actually officers did say in the evaluation they had merits to them, but, and that was the whole point of the EOI process, there were merits. Now it needs to get down to the nitty-gritty and go through it line by line, detail by detail. In fact, the only people who have actually ever sent any councillor any copies of their EOIs were the CIC, and it is my understanding that that was sent to all three group leaders, myself, councillors Watkins and Condacor. No one else has actually tried to influence or sway the process throughout all this. That is my, I think that is a comprehensive answer to the situation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Sorry, you indicate, no, it's just, I wasn't sure you're indicating then, Councillor Golby, it was just, any other member in relation to the Cabinet reports? So it has been moved and seconded, so that now needs to be voted on. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? 2. That's carried. We move on to item 10, timetable of meetings. Members will have had circulation of that. Please could I invite Councillor Croft to move that.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'll move it substantially as written. It's the traditional rolling 2-year programme of meetings that we bring to this council. The only substantive change we've really made to it is to push back the budget setting council by a week or 2, because it will save an awful lot of stress in the finance department and prevent us having to have council tax setting meetings, because our partner authorities are occasionally a bit lackadaisical with sending us their figures. So I shall move it, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. Is that seconded, Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll second that and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. So, Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the opposition group tabling this. It's useful to have, the controlling group, it is useful to have this template to build our lives around. The thing I'd always keep mentioning is planning meetings on the day after the August bank holiday are always a pain, because there's always a big application, and then you can't contact any of the officers because it's bank holiday Monday. So I do ask we look again at not doing planning meetings on Tuesdays after bank holidays. Otherwise, I'm happy with the timetable and it being set out, and I'm very happy with the budget process going slow and having those extra week, because opposition groups had a massive problem getting officer time before the budget this year. So that delay is most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Any other member? No? Second. Sorry, Councillor Wilson, you reserve your right.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, it has been through the rigorous process of going through all the group leaders, and a number of councillors have also had sight of it as well. What I would say in response to Councillor Condacor is that it is a working day, the Tuesday after the bank holiday, just as any other Tuesday after the bank holiday would be, and the agenda papers are printed a minimum of 5 days, working days that is, in advance, so any member who has a concern or query that they wish to raise has the opportunity to do so within those 5 working days beforehand. And in actual fact, it would be remiss of me to say that actually a number of our officers do pick up things over the weekends and bank holidays. They shouldn't, in all honesty, because they are entitled to their weekends and bank holidays too. But actually we have a number of very, very diligent officers who bend over backwards to help out councillors wherever they can. But we have those 5 working days set in the Constitution, and I think it might actually be law, actually, isn't it? It is a legal requirement, so we have that backstop on there, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. So, do we need to vote on that one? Yes, it is a vote on this one as well. So, those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Moving on to item 12, no, wait, 11. Item 11, OSP annual reports. Could I invite Councillor Evans to move the annual reports?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will move the free overview and scrutiny panel report to set out in the agenda. Speaking about my own panel that I chair, the Housing, Health and Environment panel, towards the start of the municipal year, the committee took an interest in the grounds maintenance contract and tree planting in the Parks Department. We scrutinised our contract to Glendale with the view of trying to increase better standards in the contract, and that's clearly happening and taking place. Working with the Housing Department, we undertook a piece of work on the impact of antisocial behaviour and the financial impact that has on the housing revenue account. And it would be remiss of me not to mention the fact that as a result of some of the work carried out by the OSP, Councillor Golby's department has increased the number of successful evictions of tenants arising from antisocial behaviour, which was causing misery to lots of our tenants across the borough. The committee has also taken an interest in health services across the borough. We've had meetings with CAMS, and we've also scrutinised the NHS on the delays that residents are facing with respect to GP provision in the borough. In addition to this, my vice chair, who I have to say has been incredibly supportive over the last 12 months, Councillor Shires, we both met with agencies to press them on the delays that people are experiencing with respect to autism referral assessments. Looking forward to the year ahead, I'm pleased to say that the committee will be looking at how the council is supporting our armed forces community and the veterans community following the rightful submission from Councillor Cape, and we look forward to taking on that work. If any member of the council wishes to talk to me about items that could be brought forward to my panel, I would of course be more than happy to speak to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. That requires seconder, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to second that and reserve my right to speak. But while I'm standing, I might as well report on the panel that I chair. The report is before you. It's been seen by the members and comes to you. A couple of highlights that we've had during the year. We've fantastic report from Waste Management, wonderful reports back on the recycling facility that we're doing, including some innovative drone footage, which I think was a new one for all of us. And I think we probably set a record for the number of public speakers when we had a special meeting to discuss the Civic Hall. I would like to pay particular tribute to the way Director Richardson helped manage that particular meeting. Thank you. I would like to pay tribute to all the members of the panel that sat and helped throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. So you did lead us there into other OSP reports. Are there any other OSP chairman wanting to give an update? Sorry, sitting on my left-hand side. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I chair the Business Regeneration and Planning Overview Committee. We have looked at various subject matters over the past 12 months. We still have one more meeting to conclude next week to finish our year. But obviously we've looked at, you can see from the report that we've looked at numerous subject matters, including PSPOs, with regards to issues that have been raised, psychedelic influencing, car sales, etc. That's been dealt with on quite a number of occasions. Town centre regeneration, and one of the things that, similar to Councillor Brown with regards to, shall we say, public participation, quite extensive discussions on the lily pad fountain removal, etc., and the replacement within the town centre on that basis. Yes, again, if anybody, any member of the council wishes to, any items to be raised, by all means, please contact me, and likewise I would thank the rest of my committee for their help, etc., and the public as speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. So it brings us to questions by members. Sorry, did you indicate then, Councillor Condicle? Councillor Condicle.
Thank you very much. I've been on scrutiny committees for, must be about 13 years almost now. And I think we need to use our scrutiny committees better. Looking at this report, we didn't actually have anything in the recommendations column very much for our three scrutiny committees. So they're not actually doing as much as they could be doing. And there has also been the issue of some things that opposition groups want to be raised, like 196 Church Road Stocking Forward, which have just been squeezed out. And we haven't had a decent debate, and we haven't got the decent data on that. Scrutiny is really important, and I think the committees have worked best when they've been scrutinising outside things like CAMS, because there hasn't been this political wanting not to rock the boat. But actually good scrutiny committees actually do talk about issues, and frankly, and non-partisan. And I remember on the Labour days, actually we got some useful things done in scrutiny because they're less of a two-sided football match than where we are now. In terms of waste, it was very interesting, the last scrutiny meeting, when we had the waste data. And I disagree strongly with Councillor Brown that we had some good data and presentation on waste, because we had all the fly tipping data, which was absolutely appalling. It was an eye-opener that we've actually gone 80% reduction in fly tipping fines or something like that. And we're now issuing litter fines instead of fly tipping fines. That's exactly the sort of thing the scrutiny committees should be looking at and following up with a follow-up review, rather than saying everything's marvellous. And also when the data we get is poor, as in the waste data, and an update issued to councillors, we need those to be published, because if in a meeting something's wrong, and I mean my fellow Councillor Wright's very good at spotting errors in spreadsheets, when we find the data we're being given as a scrutiny committee is wrong, and the officers say, oh, I'll send you a correction, those need to go in the public domain as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condicle. Sorry, I did at the outset say it was questions. It is for debate if any members wish to take part in this debate, obviously. It's open for all members to debate. Any other members? There are no other indications. Councillor Brown, you did lead from seconding in your chair's report. I will give you a brief opportunity to, as the seconder of the original motion, just to come back if you wish.
Happy to second it.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a few points that I will make in summing up on this report. Firstly, with respect to Church Road, Councillor Kondarka said that we didn't have a thorough discussion or a thorough debate regarding Church Road. The reality is that, and I'm fairly certain that the video of that meeting will confirm, that actually we spent roughly about 40 minutes discussing Church Road. Now, actually the responsibility of scrutiny is to scrutinise and to seek to bring about change where it's needed. The reality is that with respect to the Church Road situation, it's actually financially beneficial to the council, and we're actually increasing our temporary accommodation to the most vulnerable residents in the borough. That is a good thing, and I don't see the point in wasting officer time on scrutinising something that has clearly worked well. We scrutinise things which have not gone well or need improvement. And actually, to put on public record, if there are further sites like Church Road that come forward, I'm fairly certain that Councillor Golby will look at picking those up through the HRA. About recommendations on overview and scrutiny reports, that's a load of nonsense. There are recommendations in there. If you look at the minutes, that will confirm that. I have to say, having sitting on 2 OSPs, it tends to be the Conservative members who put forward the recommendations. And on the Housing, Health and Environment OSP, there hasn't been a single recommendation from the Green Group. So perhaps there needs to be a discussion in your group about that. And then in reference to Councillor Kondarka was saying, there is a lack of scrutiny. He knows full well what the powers of those committees are. But I have to say, with respect, he knows the Constitution inside out, and I've never seen for example, a scrutiny call for action from Councillor Kondarka before. He knows that power is available to him, but he's never used it. So I think we do a good job at scrutiny in this council. And in ending, I just want to pay tribute to Maria, Kelly, and Victoria, who, we wouldn't be able to perform our scrutiny functions if it wasn't for them. They do a great job summoning people here to our committees, making sure they get to the right places on time, submitting their reports, and I'm sure as part of this item we could have a vote of thanks to Kelly, Victoria and Maria for the hard work they've done over the last 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's duly noted and obviously recognised, and I'm sure all members appreciate the efforts that our staff put into ensuring that we're able to deal with these projects and overvision and scrutiny committees properly. We then move to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That is carried. We move then on to item 12A, Cabinet 8th of March, Capital Budget Monitoring. Councillor Croft. Yourself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I shall move the report as written. This presents the figures for our outturn as they were at the end of January. They will have been superseded by then by the figures at year end, which are currently being worked up. The principal reason we're bringing them to council, we have to bring them to council, is because we are retrospectively reprofiling additional capital projects into the figures so that we can properly account for them. So the Safer Streets project for Stubbs's Pool, which and is another thing that we've had funded by the Home Office, by the central government. Our playground improvements programme, the £25,000 we're making available for Stockingford Community Centre as our very successful transfer of them to the community. Kersley Community Centre is incoming. The Buttermere Park project, which Councillor Mr Tromans, Councillor Guttridge and you yourself, Mr Mayor, have done so much work on. And also it allows us to report on and account for our first tranche of UK SPF funding, which includes additional community safety projects and, of course, the lily pad fountain. And doesn't it look much better now it's gone after 31 years of thinking it's an eyesore? So I shall move the report, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. Second, Councillor Gorby. Okay, you reserve your right. Any councillor wish to speak? Councillor Condacor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Looking at the appendix on page 94 and 95, we can see how truly dreadful the progress has been on our capital programme. £65 million of stuff you planned to do in this year that's just finished. You're only doing 22.8 million. And actually some of the tiny things in this have gone really, really wrong. We have things such as the fly tipping cameras that kept being told were installed, not installed, not installed, installed, and now we find out didn't actually work. Yeah, we need more scrutiny of this, and the capital programme is absolutely massive. It's great we've got an ambitious programme, but having £65 million of ideas and 2/3 of it not actually being achieved is a dire state of affairs. And then, just in terms of scrutiny, looking down here, there are things like Hug 2. What on earth is a Hug 2? This appendix needs to spell out what some of these projects are, because as far as the public see, they just see a list of hearts and hugs and various acronyms. So it'd be really useful when presenting this stuff as to how we're spending potentially £65 million, what we're spending them on. Obviously, I welcome some stuff in here. Hopefully, we're getting our door entry systems at Cleaver Gardens this year coming, and you've actually managed to spend that budget successfully this year. So there's always in a capital programme some good stuff and some bad stuff, but I'm just shocked by how much is running really, really late. And I will mention it again, 196 to 198 Church Road, Stockingford, because everyone wants that to be done. It will save this council hundreds of thousands, and I think the benefit of it is about 400,000. The real issue is it's running a year late, which is £400,000 that we're not saving this year, and it's also 14 people or households, whatever, who are not getting that temporary accommodation. So I don't think anyone was against doing this type of accommodation. The problems were the delays and the slowness of the process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'm sort of echo of what Councillor Concord just said. This is like a list of broken promises, really. There's lots of good intentions here, but lots of broken promises that are getting carried over again. Some of these will need to be taken to scrutiny, and I will be working with colleagues to try and take some of these to scrutiny to see if we can get some sort of timescales on them this year rather than them just be carried over into next year. As I say, a good list, a promised list, but a broken list. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I promised myself I wasn't actually going to speak on this item, but after hearing some of the fantasy politics that we've just heard, and actually the politics of absence, if we take into account the Leader of the Opposition and his only one attending a Cabinet meeting this entire year, at least I have differences of opinion with Councillor Condacor. He is there. Labour Party has been absent from all of this. This is not a record of broken promises. This is sound financial management, Mr Mayor. If a project is not yet ready for construction, do you spend the money on it before you are ready? Those of us who actually have half a brain cell in this chamber know you don't. Unfortunately, we have people in the officer corps who have significantly more brain cells than that, who actually advise us correctly that if we were to try and actually borrow that money any sooner than we are ready to commit that spending, it would be lunacy. Because we have to factor in lots of different things. You have commodity prices, you have inflation, you have legal checks that you have to go through, you have to actually work out your borrowing regime and how you actually manage that effectively and prudently. All things which I know Councillor Croft's department are working exceptionally hard on, day in, day out, to make sure that happens. Now, 12 months ago, Mr Mayor, we didn't know that inflation was going to go through the roof. That has caused significant issues in terms of the capital expenditure. We have had to engage in significantly complex legal discussions, which are still ongoing, actually, as I understand it, with some of our future partners in terms of Grayson Place, so that we make sure that we are protected as a council and that we have done all the due diligence necessary, but also importantly for the other side, Mr Mayor, that our contracting partners are satisfied themselves, that they have gone through due diligence. Because one of the things I was keen to highlight, Mr Mayor, when I did one of my videos outside Grayson Place earlier this year, is that we have a fixed price contract for Grayson Place in its current phase. We were able, and we were very fortunately able, to lock the price in at the time we did. Otherwise, the prices would have, quite frankly, skyrocketed compared to where they are now. And we are having constant discussions with all our other partners about making sure we keep those inflationary pressures down, that we are buying the commodities at the right price. If I was just to say to officers, right, go ahead, spend the money, I would be quite rightly being castigated by Councillor Condacor for being profligate with the money and the purse strings. Never mind Councillor Croft telling me off at all hours of the morning, precisely because it would be foolhardy to actually go and borrow money until we are ready. We've got the absolute best price. So yes, I would like to see further progress on Grayson Place. But actually, if you look compared to where we were in 2021 when we took control of this council, we have moved heaven and literally earth, because it has had to be dug away, excavated, transported out, and then constructed upon. We have moved that, Mr Mayor, and I'm exceptionally proud that we have Grayson Place in place, something which we had rave reviews about on the day of the launch, and we are moving in the right direction. But yet again, we have the naysayers from the parties opposite who actually continue to talk our towns down when actually we want to talk them up, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I've got a point of order from Councillor Chris Watkins.
Yeah, it's more a point of personal explanation, Mr Mayor. I don't have to explain myself for not attending cabinet meetings to the leader, the rudest leader of the council that I've ever known in this chamber. And I have attended cabinet meetings. You are the rudest person I have ever known, unfortunately.
Can we
and my recent I'm still talking. And the reason that I haven't been attending recently, Mr Mayor, is as the leader of the council full knows, I've had some deaths in my family, so I've been attending my family. So I won't be explaining to you ever again, which I have done. Yes, I did. Don't lie to me. And also, Mr Mayor, no, I am explaining, I'm doing a point of personal explanation.
Yeah, you raised a point of order, actually, but...
And then I've changed it to a point of personal explanation, which I've just done.
I am allowing that, but please keep it to the issue.
That'll do, Mr Mayor. But
Okay, thank you, Councillor
there should be
Watkins.
some manners in this chamber.
Councillor Wilson, you've got a point of, I forgot now, point of personal explanation.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think if anyone needs to learn manners, it's the party opposite. As he well knows, any member of his group can attend Cabinet and represent the Labour Party, not just him. I do not recollect anything about death in the family. If there was one, it certainly doesn't last for 12 months.
Let's not get into
As a
personal-
former mayor, he should know better, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, okay, well,
but as it
let's
happened,
please...
I hadn't finished my point of personal explanation,
Right, okay.
Mr
the
Mayor.
point then, please.
As it happens, I think some people have very short memories because Councillor Harvey, then Councillor Harvey, was one of the rudest and most obnoxious people who ever graced this chamber. Just because I am forthright and resolute and don't give in to bullying tactics doesn't necessarily mean that I am rude. And when it comes to the Cabinet report, the recommendations and what goes on, actually, I welcome people coming to Cabinet and engaging in debate. It's just a shame that people don't like it when they get the answers they don't like.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Downs.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to offer a personal thank you to the leader and this side of the House. First of all, for getting rid of that monstrosity, which was the lily pad fountain. And the traders on the marketplace, they thank you as well, because all of a sudden there's no smell of open sewerage through the middle of the day, and there's no flies everywhere. Today it was finished, all the fencing's been taken down, and all I can say is, my God, what a difference. So thank you very much from the market traders and myself. Also, thank you for the over £700,000 for Bedworth Town Centre. I know it's not your money. I know you've had it with a grant, but again, that's more money than Bedworth Town Centre's ever seen. No trader can even plug into Bedworth at the moment. We're having to use generators. It's embarrassing. Yeah, so from myself, again, personally, and from the traders of Nuneaton and Bedworth, thank you very much, Mr Leader. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and thank you to everybody on the Conservative Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. I've not seen any other indication, so I'll move back to... I've lost you. Councillor Golby, seconded. Okay, thank you. We'll go back to Councillor Croft.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Just to sort of pick up on Councillor Downs' comments, the £700,000 for looking at the revamp and the redo of Bedworth Market will be in next year's funding, but I will just point out that is yet another excellent grant we have had from central government, and while it is not our money, none of this is our money, we all take it in trust and manage it as best as we can. It is this administration that has made the decision to make that priority, so I just wanted to lay that on the record. A couple of points that came up. I think Councillor Wilson has answered almost all of the financial issues with the slippage. We are reprofiling some of the projects into future years. As I have said before, a generation of neglect cannot quickly be put right. The only other thing I would bring to Council's attention is that, of course, as has often been discussed in this chamber, is officer capacity with the projects we are running. We are now introducing a very wide-ranging transformation programme, which was heard in session at the Extraordinary Council last time, which the member who was complaining voted against, which will address these issues and allow us to be much more flexible and much more effective at introducing these projects. And I would, as I have done so before, plead with him to stop wasting my officer's time on frivolous queries, because then they will be freed up to manage projects better. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. Move to the votes. Those in favour? Any against? That vote is carried. Move on then to 12B, Employment Committee, the 15th of March 2023 Pay Policy Statement. Councillor Croft to move.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I shall move it as written. It's our pay policy statement. We are required by statute to produce one to detail the remuneration of our chief officers and the way in which we work out the pay for our entire officer corps. And there's there's very little to it in terms of a political aspect, so I shall move that.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. Is a seconder, Councillor Damon Brown.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to second this and reserve my right to speak should it prove necessary. Thank you.
Member, Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. We keep getting told we need less senior officers but them to be paid better, and that seems to be the way the council's going, even though less people inherently can cause you problems. But one thing that also I think this report should have in future years is the number of empty posts, because we say what we pay people, but actually if we've got posts that aren't filled, effectively people are doing double the work, which is causing us stress. And also I think in this report we should also have the pay for our agency staff that are bringing in to cover, because we've got a lot of interim staff at the moment who are very expensive, and I think that the pay policy statement should actually at least list what the very high paid external consultants
can
are.
I just
Thank
make a point that what you're discussing is what's is out of the concept in relation to what's required by law in relation to the paper we're discussing. But if you want to continue.
I just want to come back on that and say, I know this is the minimum the law requires, but I think it'd be good for public scrutiny if actually we listed what percentage of posts were vacant and also the pay of external consultants. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Any other member? Sorry, Councillor Cape.
I'm not sure, because I'm new to this, only been here a year, about whether it's a point of order, point of explanation or whatever. That issue that Councillor Condacor just raised... The issue that was just raised was actually raised by myself at an OSP very early on in the year. And so when we were told that we don't hold things to scrutiny, that was in fact one of the scrutiny points I was raised. It was explained to me at the time that the accounting process for that had been going on for years, so I'm kind of pleased to hear it come out again now, but in a way it was dealt with several months ago.
Thank you, Councillor Cape. Any other member? Going back to Councillor Damon Brown as second, did you wish to add?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's been said that the art of good management is putting the right people in the right place at the right time. And I think we can add to that at the right pay scale. And the entire ethos of what we're doing is getting the right people in the right posts, doing the right job for the right remuneration. And that's really what this is all about. And we have to have a policy in place to be able to do that. Hence the policy in front of us. It's not necessary for the policy to have to explain every vacancy, why it's there. It's a policy for a reason. And that's what we adhere to. It's a policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown, for that response. Councillor Croft, you moved it. Nothing to add. So we move straight to the vote. Those in favour? Any against? 2. That's carried. Moving on to 12C. Overview and scrutiny panels. Councillor Walsh, I believe you're going to do this one.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'll present to you the guidance report on the overview and scrutiny committees that have been presented to all members within those overview committee, and given a comprehensive guidelines with regards to scrutiny and etc. I haven't received any other comments regarding it, so I'm quite happy to put that to be voted for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Evans, did you wish to second that?
Second, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Any member? Councillor Condacor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's great you look at me first when you say any questions. A scrutiny guide is really good, and obviously we've got quite a few people who've only been a councillor for a year, so I do recommend you going through it. And some things only come up every couple of years, and Councillor Evans mentioned the council call for action, which I think is very useful as a last resort, and the guidance on it is quite clear that that's the thing you do when everything has gone through, etc. We are almost at that stage with Cleaver Gardens with the roads, which have been in dispute between the borough and the county for decades. But I say it is a very useful guide this to know what we can scrutinise and the processes. And as members become more used to it, having gone round the municipal year once or twice, you start to be able to get better at scrutiny and know how to get answers out. One issue we've massively had is officers' attendance, and it's mentioned in this guide, but I think we do need to get officers attending more often to scrutiny meetings. And the other thing which particularly interesting with the debate on highways earlier is actually the scrutiny, the council can scrutinise other bodies, and on page 116 of our agenda today, it's got all sorts of bodies, and you know, we can look at scrutinising the highways agency, the county council, whatever, where it relates to what is happening in our borough. Yeah, we've had debates in the past about the fire service here, for example, when they wanted to reduce our fire cover. So I think as councillors get round and use scrutiny more, we can do a lot better. So I will actually be voting for this report, and I will actually probably end up using the councillor calling procedure on Cleaver Gardens roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condacourt. For clarification, I look at all members in relation to who wants to speak, and as they identify, I then select them. No other member indicating, so we'll go back to Councillor Evans. Second.
I've no further comments to make other than the fact that with respect to officer attendance, for the reasons highlighted by Councillor Kondaka, that's why we allow officers to attend every scrutiny meetings virtually if they cannot attend face-to-face. However, I think all three of us chairs have said that we do prefer officers to attend the meetings face-to-face.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Martin Walsh, did you wish to sum up or add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to thank committee services for putting this together and bringing it up to date and circulating it for all those members of the committee and services. Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Move to the vote. Those in favour? Sorry, any against? Any abstentions? That's a unanimous decision. It's nice to end on such a harmonious note. So thank you everyone for attending. I hope you have a safe journey home. Meeting is closed.